How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about Krampus from 2015. This is directed by Michael Dougherty. If you guys hung around with the channel for a while, you might know that in October I covered another movie directed by Michael Dougherty, Trick or Treat, with the R and the comma. There's several movies with similar titles. So yeah, Michael Dougherty did a really good classic Halloween film, and now Michael Dougherty is doing a really good classic Christmas horror film. So really a good man to do holiday movies. If they ever remake Leprechaun, they should probably get him on it, huh? Anyway, this movie stars Toni Collette, Adam Scott, and quite a few other familiar faces. This does have a pretty good-sized cast. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at the plot. No major spoilers, but I do want to talk about some stuff that happens in the movie, and I do want to make sure you guys have a general understanding of what this movie is about. But anyway, you get this kid and his family, and they're getting ready to have people over for Christmas. And of course, they're getting kind of stressed about that. Everybody, piling into one big house. It's something that's going to happen, and they're excited to have the celebration, but also knowing, the stress that's going to come. But anyway, you get the mom and dad, Toni Collette and Adam Scott. The kid also has an older sister, and then a fifth member of the family that you wouldn't necessarily expect right off the bat. Their elderly grandma is living with them, Adam Scott's mom, who is German, and although she knows a fair bit of English, she still prefers to speak German, and she'll actually have conversations with the kid where she's speaking German and he's speaking English, and they're both talking to each other in the language they're most comfortable with. But of course, she knows more about deep-cut Christmas traditions than a lot of other people will, and maybe that will come in handy later. But anyway, the people that show up, you get the mom's sister and her husband, as well as their 3 kids, 2 daughters, and the joke is that the dad was hoping for boys, and they're raised kind of more athletic than you might expect. But these are kind of like Eddie from Christmas Vacation, Eddie and his family. Some clear nods to classic holiday movies in that regard. But they also bring over the maid from 2.5 Men, and it's always fun to see her. Kind of the same character, but hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's fun to see her as well. Now they all sit down to dinner, and it's a little bit chaotic. But one thing that happens is one of the daughters takes the kid's letter and reads it aloud in an effort to torment and embarrass him. And there are a few things in there that cut a little deeper emotionally than you might expect, and it leads to the son getting humiliated and angry, and he storms off into his room. Adam Scott, of course, tries to calm him down. Hey, it's all gonna be fine. And you think maybe it is okay, but he, when his dad leaves, rips up his Christmas letter to Santa Claus, throws it out the window, and the pieces get carried up into the sky by the wind. Now, the family wakes up the next morning, and there's a huge blizzard, the power's going out, everybody's stuck inside, but they begin to suspect that more's going on. Eventually, some of them will start to go missing. They can't really find anybody else, and strange things start to happen, and strange things start to show up, and eventually you do get to see that because of the boys' crisis of Christmas spirit, they have summoned Krampus and all of his helpers, and it kicks off into the movie. Now, there are some very good, very big pros with this movie that I want to talk about. First and foremost, well, not foremost, but first, the setting. This abandoned town in a blizzard. They say that a lot of people are out of town for Christmas, and even though you're in a neighborhood, there doesn't appear to be too many people here. A really cool, cold, frozen setting. It almost feels like, say, Silent Hill, the abandoned town, but abandoned neighborhood. And you do get to see not too many other people, but, you know, what is going on, why are they trapped, why are they alone, and it's a cool abandoned world concept. Two is Krampus and his followers. You know, I said first and foremost, and I corrected myself, because if you want the big, most notable thing with the movie, the foremost, it'd have to be this. Krampus is cool, a big, evil version of Santa Claus with big horns, and you get to see him at the beginning, but you don't really get a good look at him up until, like, say, the end, when you actually see his face and really get to look at him, and you're like, wow, this is a big, crazy, very good monster design. And the thing is, okay, so you don't get to see him up close and personal too much until the very end. What are you doing for most of the movie? Well, that's where his helpers come in. It's not just Krampus with this movie. You, of course, you know, an evil version of Santa from folklore. You get elves, obviously. He has his own evil Krampus elves. You get some very fun gingerbread cookies, kind of reminiscent of the mini ashes from Army of Darkness. But you also get the toys and crazy, fun, evil toys, you know, an evil teddy bear, an evil old-timey toy robot, even the angel from the top of the Christmas tree. But the creepiest is this insanely creepy Jack-in-the-Box that even has, like, this weird jaw, and it's got this big, long neck, well, I guess waist, but it is, you know, hard to describe, but the creepiest Jack-in-the-Box that anyone could imagine. He could, if this was The Conjuring, he would have a spin-off film, but he is really good, almost as memorable as Krampus himself. But having all these things, it does give a variety. It does give a sense that you're being attacked by a big, crazy army of, you know, elves and toys and cookies, and it makes the threat all that much bigger, but it also puts Krampus into the back as this big looming force, and when he shows up, you're like, oh dang, the boss is here, you know, so it does build him up as well. This is Weta Workshop. A lot of this stuff is actually practical, and big thumbs up for that. Gotta love it. And while we're talking about cool things as well, there is a fun stop motion scene in here where they kind of, you know, explain a few things, and gotta love that as well. Another big thing, though, with this movie is the family and the human characters. It doesn't forget characterization. You know, a lot of times when you're seeing, oh hey, here's a fun, wacky, over-the-top movie, it's just for the cartoon effects. It's just to see wacky, crazy things. And this is definitely in the movie. You definitely get to see that. But this movie does have a good sense of humanity, and you get to see all these characters and how they relate to each other. And I can remember all the characters, even though there are quite a few of them. You really get the sense of, you know, these are well fleshed out characters. There's one scene, it's just a very little scene, where Toni Collette's talking to her sister, and the sister looks up and goes, oh, you have Mom's angel, you know, at the top of the Christmas tree. And it's just such a little moment where they have a little conversation after that, And it's these little things that make these people feel real, and I really do love it. One other thing, though, is I should talk about, I mentioned at the beginning, this is the same guy who directed Trick or Treat, and this really does feel like a spiritual sequel, not an obvious direct tied sequel, but a movie that continues the last movie's themes and ideas. In Trick or Treat, you had a character, Sam, and I didn't mention this in my review, but Sam is probably, although they never confirm this, probably how do you pronounce it correctly? Samhain? But most people mispronounce it as Sam Hain, was where he gets his name. But a very, an iconic character in the holiday, although kind of a deeper cut, a horror character that really cares about tradition. And that's one of the big things, the big horror character tied to this holiday, the mythology behind him, and really caring about tradition. And plus the comedic tone and the over-the-top ideas, they really do carry over the best from Trick or Treat and put it into this Christmas setting. So if you like Trick or Treat, really, if you haven't seen this movie, go check it out. All the good parts from that movie. If you remember my review for Trick or Treat, though, I did mention a flaw. In Trick or Treat, you had this fun, oh boy, it's Halloween tone, but then it get really dark and it'd feel jarring. This movie does a little bit of that, but it's a lot better. They probably get it as close to that line without going over. It has this fun, oh hey look, it's Christmas tone, and then something really dark will happen, but they go right up to the line. They don't go too dark. And then, of course, any moments that might be too dark, they use quite expertly a good bit of humor so it doesn't clash with the tone. It's very funny, and that helps it from getting too dark and serious, so that the magic of the holiday theme that both movies share, it never has the tonal clash, because it never goes too dark. It finds the right line, and then scenes that it might have gone too dark, it uses humor to kind of, suppress it. The one thing I will say with this movie, well, two flaws, but one is these people have really good processing of their emotion, and I get it, it needs to be this way for stories to happen, but, someone they loved gets kidnapped by an evil version of Santa Claus, and they get upset, and you can see that it's, upsetting them, but at the same time, I can't help but think real-world characters would, in a blind rage, run into the, night and just instantly get killed or captured right there, and then in turn, all your characters would be gone except for, like, 2 within the first 30 minutes of anything happening. So I get why, but at the same time, I'm like, boy, these guys have good emotional processing. The other thing, and I won't spoil anything, but the ending is kind of weird. Now, at first I saw the ending, I'm like, huh, what's that? What's that about? And then over the course of watching this so many times, you're like, there's that weird ending coming up. So it does really, it grows on you, although it does beg a few questions, and I'd really like to, sit the director down and get some concrete answers. Hey, if this happens, what does that mean about this? What's going on here? Does this mean this or this? And it is a little bit vague, and you have a little bit of questions, but I do feel that, it's a good and iconic ending. It's just a little weird at first, but over time you grow on it. And, like I said, over time, I looked at the back, and this said 2015. It feels like it's been around longer. I've watched it so many times, it feels like such a classic that it's hard to believe this movie's only 5 years old. But yeah, this has earned its way onto, because there's Christmas movies that you watch once and you're like, okay, that's fine. Then there's Christmas movies you watch a few times, but they don't always make your rotation. You're like, I like that movie, I'll watch it some Christmases. But then there's the movies that you absolutely have to watch every year, and being a big horror fan, this has made it onto my list of horror movies that I will watch every single year around Christmas time, and that is really good. But good, imaginative. This started the Krampus boom. Krampus, Santa Claus's evil shadow. You had heard of it a few times, but after this movie, you got lots of people talking about Krampus. You got lots of lower budget Krampus movies, and Krampus would pop up in things every now and then because of this movie. So even though it's not the biggest subgenre, this did kick off the Krampus subgenre. And whenever you see a movie that started a subgenre, you know that it did something good. And yeah, this really kicked it off, you know. Tons of Krampus movies afterwards. But anyway, good, imaginative. If you like creature design, if you like humor, if you like Christmas horror, really, if you're a horror fan, check this out, especially around this time of year. But anyway, definitely recommend Krampus. Anyway, to anyone who's watched so far, if you watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'm doing Christmas movies all December long. Typically I do about 95% horror movies on here, so if that sounds like something you're interested in, I definitely recommend sticking around. I'm going to put the Christmas playlist on the bottom. That will have a bunch of other Christmas movies, Silent Night, Deadly Night, Jack Frost. I'm going to be adding to that list all December long. So anyway, thank you guys for coming by. Christmas playlist at the bottom. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Have a good day.